reading the map of mechanics, the human design chart. Okay, so before I dive into this, I want you to understand that there are a lot of variables in play. And I will not be diving into the specifics of every single variable, otherwise we'll be here for several hours. What I do want to get into is I want to get into the flow of where to begin looking in the chart to be able to see kind of that totality of the holistic view of the person. And do remember, charts are not humans and humans are not charts. So when you're looking at someone's chart, you're looking at potential variables that might be in play. You then have to go and meet the person, talk with the person, get to know the person, learn from them where their difficulties are, and then be able to correlate where you see certain things in a chart and where you hear certain things in a person. You cannot just take the totality of a chart and understand exactly where someone's stuff or junk is going to reside. You got to get to know them. Okay, so we're going to dive into from the beginning. So here I have a person's chart. Where I first start is I look to find where the Auric type is. If you've got it laid out up top, you can see it right up top. It'll say type. You can also look at the body graph itself and look at this center right here. This is called the sacral center. If that is defined, they are a generator of one type or another. If this center is white, then they are either a projector, a manifestor, or a reflector. If the whole chart, all of these other centers, if all of them are white, then it's a reflector. Otherwise, it's either a projector or a manifestor, and those are details we'll get into another time of which is which to identify in the chart. Generators have that warm, enveloping, magnetic kind of energy that draws people or attracts people to them. That strategy is to wait to respond. They are here to do, but they are not here to initiate. Okay, so that tells me how they walk through the world and what part they're here to play in that sort of overall big picture perspective. The projectors, when this center down here is white, are focused, absorbing, they're penetrating. They're really here to absorb and understand the other. And they're here to penetrate that aura and offer things that might be helpful so that that generator has more of a direction in which to do something, okay? Projectors work really well with generators and with manifestors to help focus and concentrate their efforts. Where manifestors are driven, they are here to manifest. They are here to dream up a thing, kind of visualize it, and then go do it, right? They are kind of what everybody else in this society is told that they should be capable of doing. That is their type, all right? So manifestors also have this kind of repelling aura that helps to keep other energies away from them so they can do the thing that they're here to do. Their strategy is to inform before they just go off and do something, lest they make relationships around them really uncomfortable. And likewise for projectors, it's to wait to be invited because not everybody wants the penetrative energy that the projector can offer. Reflectors, on the other hand, they're receptive, they're open, they're here to understand, taste the world, and show us what is next, right? They're here to be a sensory tool of evaluating where the world is at, okay? In all of these types, there's all sorts of not-self things that can pop up. This gives an indication of what that person has as a potential. Whether or not they actually do it is their choice. So then I look at, so I've got their aura type, right? So simplistically speaking, the sacral defined is a generator of one type or another, and not defined is one of the other non-energy types. And then is what is their strategy? Are they here to wait to respond? Are they waiting for invitation? Or do they just need to inform before they go do something? The next aspect is authority. And in this particular chart, you can see up here, it'll say inner authority is sacral for this particular chart. And that's because there aren't any other predominant authorities defined. So if the emotions was defined, that would trump the sacral. And so you can look up here, or you can know by knowing the order or the hierarchy or prioritizing of what authorities are designed as. So the primary one, or the first one that trumps all the other ones, would be the emotional solar plexus, followed up by the sacral. then the spleen, then the will and G center, then the head and ajna, which is more of the environmental, right? Or none, which means an outer authority. Most people have something in the body graph down here in this lower quadrant that is defined. About 50% of people have this emotional solar plexus defined, and so that is their authority. And so each one of those authorities comes with a very specific sort of like guidepost of instructions. If you have an emotional authority, you need to wait for clarity before you do something, before you act, before you communicate back. And oftentimes what that means is take a step back. Say, I'll get back to you, or I need some time to ponder this. Whatever it takes for other people to understand that you need time, and then you go take that time and you work through that process. Sacral authority has that very simplistic, yet often difficult to do, checking in with your gut response and asking yourself or being asked very simple questions of yes or no type origins, where you can either feel a yes, I have energy for this, kind of like that stirring in the gut that says, I can do this, or feeling nothing, which is really what the no is. You've got the splenic intuition. The spleen is over here on this side of things, and remember, splenic authority is only an authority if these two are not defined. Okay, that's when this one comes into play. And that authority is based in operating in the now and paying attention to the quiet, one-time, instinctive yes or no's, being drawn to something, and more importantly, listening for the no aspect of the authority. It's really, really important. Some of the other ones you can go look up on your own. I don't want to take up too much time with this video because I want to keep it kind of succinct. And if you've been in classes with me, look back at the previous module's notes and you will see all about that. The other aspect that I take a look at is I take a look at how many authority centers are lit up in the person's chart. In this particular chart, there's 2 authority centers lit up. I know that this person is a sacral authority because this sacral authority has a higher prioritization than the G center authority does. And when I'm looking at the chart, I'm looking at the different authority types of centers that are there. So this person is going to want to look for their sacral responses. They're also going to have a real deep need to talk and share things about what they're thinking, what their direction is, what their process is, in order to determine which direction is going to be correct for them. Okay, so that's a way of being able to assess if there's more than one authority designed. It can help a person set up what their internal process might look like, with their first step always being that primary authority. All right, so the next dynamic is looking at the profile. So in some charts, you'll find it up here in this handy dandy little definer. You can also find it in the body graph by looking at the number that comes right after the first gate here in the sun, and also over here. Personality, design. Personality is conscious, design is unconscious. Think of the design as the body, okay? So this is a body line 4 and a personality line 2, which makes up the 2-4, which is the hermit opportunist. Brief rundown: 1 is the investigator, 2 is the hermit, 3 is the martyr, 4 is the opportunist, 5 is the heretic, and then the 6th one is going to be the role model, and the role model comes back down to the 1 as well. And so there's a whole process to understand what those different pieces mean. They come from the I Ching lines. You find the I Ching lines after every single one of the gates down both sides of these columns. The first number, the symbol you see is the planet. The first number you see, or first 2 numbers in some cases, before the decimal place, is the gate number. And then the number that comes right after that is the line frequency, the I Ching line. And so that gives you another flavor added onto the planet placement, the gate itself, and then the line flavor. And so that becomes a divination aspect where you can look at and begin to apply where these particular dynamics might show up in one's life, so that as one is going in through their life, they can be a little bit more aware of the things that they might be encountering in themselves, right? All right, so profiles show me how people are pulled. The personality is how they are consciously. It's how what they think matters. It is also what they're here to be once they are fully connected to their body, to the design, the second number. So this 2, this hermit, is what it thinks it is, right? It's how it sees itself. The line 4, the opportunist, is what the body is here to do. It's here to deeply connect with people. It's here to build friendships. It's here to have that sort of be the glue in the network between people. And at the same time, once that body line 4 is living out its design, it comes back around to be the hermit, to be the one that is bringing its natural talents out into the world, waiting for its call. It's designed to be kind of a very self-contained unit until it comes bursting out as it's answering the call, and then it recedes back in and comes out again. The design side of it, where they are unconsciously. It's how their vessel is, their body, their isness, the lens that they perceive their truth through. It's how they're here to experience life. If this part is absent, the tangible patterns in their life, as in it doesn't really show up at all in their life, it might be that they have had a shutdown of their own internal unconscious process, or that they're so removed from who they are that they have a hard time being who they are. They're more of what they think they are. They're stuck in the personality side of things. They're basically asleep to their inner nature. Okay, the next thing I take a look at is I take a look at all the centers in this whole profile here. Okay, first I take a look at what is defined. This particular chart goes from sacral, G center, voice, and ajna. So those 4 are what is defined for them, and that is their constants. It can be their constants, their lane, their medicine, their reliable ways of being that they can keep coming back to when they get stuck in all of the other places. And so then I hone in and I look at the open centers. I see an open root, open spleen, open emotions, open will, open head. Okay? In knowing what is open and what is defined, I know that the white centers, where they are open, is the most likely place where there's going to be not self traps. As in, because they don't have a constant expression in any of those open centers, it is where they take in conditioning from others. It's where they allow someone else to tell them how life should be for them. And so in that process of accepting something that is not true for them, they give over their power. They also block the route of spirit being able to move through their bodies. When I look at a chart, I see these open centers as being where spirit can move through, when the human and its not self-conditioning isn't blocking the way. It's when our spontaneous inspirations and deep pleasures and joys of life and really understanding deep grieving processes can really be, rather than be stuck and have us be stuck in a negative place. Negative high, negative low, however it is. Okay, so that tells me where maybe to begin working with them, because if you don't decondition these white centers and stop doing the things that those open centers are tricking you, or rather the conditioning you've taken on in those open centers is tricking you to do something that is not you, then they have no way of being able to really lean into their isness, their lane, these defined centers that are going up through the center of the graph in this particular chart. So I take a really good look at those, because it shows me where their consistencies, their lanes, and also where life might be smacking them upside the head until they learn those lessons. Open centers are where lessons, and when those lessons have been learned, they evolve into wisdoms. That is where that deep medicine comes from those open centers. All right. So the next thing I take a look at is their circuitry. Understanding the route that their circuitry takes, how the centers talk to each other. So in this particular chart, the sacral is defined to the G center with a channel between, and then there is a break, right? So if I was to draw a line through this particular chart split, I would draw it right through here. So this person has good communication between these two centers, and good communication through the ajna and the throat. But the throat and the G center do not have a full channel. And so this one here, it's the 31 gate defined, and the 7 is open. And if the 7 was defined, that would lead to a complete circuit all the way through, which would be called a single definition. So that 7 is the bridging gate. Bridging gates are what connects centers who are disconnected together. Hanging gates are wherever you see a gate that is not all the way across, okay? So, hanging gate, hanging gate, hanging gate, hanging gate, hanging gate. Channel, up here, 2 channels, defined. Right here, you see this 31 defined in the throat, and it's not defined to the G center. And if it was, it would complete a circuitry all the way down. So not only is that a hanging gate, but it's also a bridging gate, and it's the 7. It's the one that is open on the other end of the defined gate that is the bridging gate. Really good ones to study. It's very much where a lot of not self gets stuck. And when you can clear that out, a lot of changes happen in a really good way. All right, incarnation crosses. So incarnation crosses are right up here across the top, right angle cross of explanation, 449, 23, 43. Now, you can also see it here in the body graph. This 449 is also the 4 and the 49. It's the first 2 on the personality column, right here. And the last 2 are the top 2 on this column, right? So the top 2 on either side is that incarnation cross. Right angle versus left angle, okay? There's also a third called juxtaposition. It's very few people, and it's more of a fixed nature between both of them. Right angle has to do with a personal destiny. Left angle has to do with a transpersonal destiny. It's more than just about you. In fact, it's about what you encounter in life that brings you to your destiny, your incarnation cross. The right angle has a destiny that is really within them. When they are living their design, they meet their own destiny. They meet what they are here for. Now, there's a few other things that I've noted through years of studying this, and that is that right angle folks often deal with the majority of their stuff internally. It's their stuff that comes up, and it's really like in their face. It's I feel. It's I this, right? When they get right down to it. Now, everybody who has damage or who hasn't learned how to communicate very well, or who has had a lot of experiences that have left them all twisted around, can often have the expressions where like they point a finger outside themselves. This caused this to me. This caused this to me, right? When we start living into our designs, that right angle side of things really begins to see how much life is about them, right? It's their own feelings, their own needs, their own wants, their own desires. It's the things that they're not getting that lead them to their places of, I don't think I like this, or places of feeling really stuck. Where with left angle people, it's more about others. It's encountering what others are doing, right? And oftentimes how that makes them feel. So think left others, right self, right? And you'll be right along that path, and really lean into what that looks like. Or when you're working with someone and sharing with them their chart, suggest that they lean into whether life is really about them or about the other, and correlate it with the chart and have that experimentation aspect of it. The second part of the incarnation cross is the word that comes after its location, right? So, or its placement. So you have the right angle cross of, and then you've got all sorts of things: vessel of love, explanation, surrender, 4 ways. Like there's so many different definitions. One of the best ways I have found to interpret those is to really consider all the different spectrums to which that word could mean. For example, this chart right here has the right angle cross of explanation. Explanation. Needing explanations, needing things to be explained to it, needing something to be explained to the point where they understand it beyond a shadow of a doubt, which is a really hard thing to ask for. Explaining, the need to explain oneself, the need to, the desire or the draw to help others understand things by explaining, right? So there's a lot of different ways that that explanation can be both a gift to others and potentially a curse or a trap to oneself. And so the quicker we get on, we let go and surrender to what it is that is going to be our very narrow path to walk in life, the easier our life becomes, because we're not so busy swirling in a pool of our own misery. We're like, okay, that's my particular potentiality for misery. Let me see what I can do with that. How can I work with it? Sometimes, how can I work around it? How can I understand and thus love myself better when I find myself in a place of deep frustration? And what it has to do with is my Incarnation Cross, right? If that is the destiny that one has, it's not easy to fight our destiny, right? What is the point of fighting our destiny? We are here for a reason. In fact, I personally would go so far as to say that we chose this. We chose this. That's part of my experiment, is that I chose to be here in this body with this chart. And yes, I am talking about my own chart in this way, so that I could have a particular kind of experience. And in leaning into that, I get to try on these different variables, like, what if this is true? And what if this is true? How does that help things shift? How does that help me become more compassionate in my heart about myself? And how does it make me become more compassionate about someone else? To me, that's how the experiment needs to be run, is that it comes with the contingency of how am I treating myself and others. It's both. It's a two-way street. Self, others. Self, others. This constant go back and forth. And I keep experimenting until I find myself in a good, solid place with it all. Not to where I am compromising, not to where I am being a rug on the floor or I'm being dominating, but to where I have a gentleness in my being while still having the solid lines that I walk. All right. Last thing I want to cover is looking at the channels. Okay. So in this particular chart, there is the 14-2, and there's the 23-43, and the 56-11. You're going to find all of those numbers in the columns that are here. In fact, everything that is lit up inside of this chart, as far as the numbers, the gates, and the channels go, you can find them listed on the sides of the columns on either side. And so with each one of these gates, there comes a line flavor as well as planet's origin. So we're going to take this one for an example. The 14-2, I know that as the keeper of the beat. It's also the creator. And so 14 is found, well, you can look right at it. You can see that number 2 is red. In this chart, it looks more gray because it's a black and white chart. But over here on the design side, which is the unconscious, which would be red if I was looking at this in color, here's the 2 right here. And the 2 is in Mars, and it is with the line I Ching of 1. Okay? So that line 2, which the line 2 is the most yin. It's the most feminine. It's about abundance. It's about holding on to and managing that level of abundance. Okay, so that 2 has a flavor of the 1 as an investigator. And so the 2-1 in Mars, okay, so Mars is friction, conflict, and growth. So in conflict, friction, and growth with Mars, you have the 2, which is the most yin, and it's working with abundance. So that means my abundance comes out of my conflict and my growth. So that means I cannot grow without conflict. Which means if I'm always yelling, I want peace, all the time, then I'm literally avoiding my own growth. Right? Okay, so back where we were. Conflict, growth, Mars, abundance, feminine, holding, supporting energy, the 2, investigative energy, creating secure foundations, the 1. Okay? So that's how you read that straight across. And that is part of that channel that exists up in the G center. The 14 down here, on the other end of that channel, so we're working with another set of gates, actually has 2 placements, at least, because in this channel it is both red and black, which tells me that the 14 is over here and over here. So as we scan down, we have the 14 down here in Uranus. It's Uranus 14.5. And over here we have it, same placement, Uranus 14.2. Okay? So the 14 aspect of things is the gate of power skills. Okay? So power skills is the skills you need to function through life, the things that you need to be able to deal with whatever is coming up. It's life skills. Okay? So we have Uranus, and Uranus is an aspect of being a catalyst. It's the things that are going to catalyze the world, your world, my world, right? So catalyst, Uranus, power skills, 14. 2, which is the hermit, right? It's the hermit, it's the natural genius, it's the need to retreat, it's the need to wait to be called, as well as 5, heretic, the natural leader, also one who retreats. So in catalytic times, there's going to be a deep need to retreat, to figure out what it is you're going to be doing, and then come out. And there's also going to need to be a call for that to happen. So in order to bring, and so now let's put these all together, right? We got the 2 and the 14, both being in Uranus, stay with me, in Hermit line 2 and Heretic line 5. And so the 2 and the 14, we have feminine, abundance, life power skills, creates the keeper of the beat, doon, 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 rhythm keeper, right? It's the creator. It's that energy. But it's in the energy of being the catalyst, both in Uranus, and it's also in the 2 and the 5, both of which have a need to retreat, to be able to figure out what's going on, and a need to be called out to bring out their experiences to others. Okay? So that's how you put together the information that can be found inside of the channels and the gates, how you can dance back and forth between each one of these. I have created a spreadsheet where it brings all of this information into one spreadsheet where you can look it through and find where everything lines up, so you can do what I just did without looking at the numbers and being like, what the heck does the numbers mean? And then I use this as a practice to unpack the channels and the gates. So you've got your gates on either end that creates your channel, and then you've got what centers it connects to, what circuitry it's in, the gate, it's conscious or unconscious, it's I Ching line, and it's planet. So you can read them this way and understand the totality of what this channel description means for that particular person in that particular chart. You see, gates don't change and channels don't change, but every person is going to have a unique layout in where they show up with their planets and where it shows up with their I Ching lines. And so it becomes this never-ending investigation of what is it that I could do differently? What is it that we could do differently? What becomes even more exciting is when you put multiple charts together and you see what gets defined when you have two different beings in the same aura, right? You do a composite chart, and that's where it takes two different charts and it overlays it and it adds what this person has to what this person has, and then you get a third chart that represents the totality of both energies. That, my dears, is quite an interesting delve into the different variables, and can be short, brief, and to the point, or as deep as you need to be able to delve into the different rabbit holes of what it means to be in relationship with each other. So many variables can exist in one being, let alone when we add them all together. All right, happy exploring. See you next time. My name is Rainey Ford. I'm an herbalist and inner cartographer, founder of Nematon and Mountain Woman Medicine. If you are interested in purchasing herbal medicines or discovering your inner mapping, please visit my website in the description below. Have a wonderful day, beautifuls.